Hello everybody, welcome to the Go language course. In this video, I'm going to discuss the use of for loops in Go language. Before we discuss it, we have to include the main package on the first line of the code. We also have to import the fmt package so that we can use the printline functions coming from the fmt package. Okay. Now let's talk about the use of for loops. A for loop has three parts. The first one is the initialization. The second one is the condition to do the looping, and the third one is the update of the variable that is used to do the looping. And we have to notice that the looping index is local to the for loop. It means something like this. We have an I here. I will be local to the for loop. It means that I'm not able to use the same I when the for loop ends. So this is the meaning of the I being the looping index being local to the for loop. And we have the first part called initialization here. After that, I put a semicolon, and then I go to the second part, which is called the condition to do the looping. So when I is still smaller than 5, I'm able to do the looping. And I also need to update the looping index, so I can use I++ to just add 1 after each loop. Okay, and I can do the printing of the looping variable. So let me try to play with the code. Okay, you can see that I can print out 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But when I is equal to 5, the looping condition would fail. That means I would stop at 4 only, okay? And I will start with 0 because 0 is the first value to do the looping, okay? So this is the fundamental way of making a for loop in Go language. Here we cannot really access the index outside the for loop because it is not defined outside the for loop. So it means that I'm not able to print out the value of I. If I want to do so, I will have some error coming out because the I here would belong to the for loop only. So let us try to run this part. You can see that I have an undefined variable called I because this I is really outside the for loop and I'm not able to use it because this I is not present in the main program. It is just for the for loop, okay? Okay, let us talk about another way of using a for loop, which is called conditional for loop. It means that the while loop of other languages, so we can use a for loop in Go language to represent the while loop concept in other languages. So it means that only a condition is included, and we have to remember to update the index used for looping. So you can see something like this. If this part is allowed, I can do the for loop forever. And we have to include some way to really increment or change the index for our looping. Otherwise, it will have infinite loop because the value of j will never change if we don't really do something to change it in the for loop. Okay, so the whole thing is pretty similar to the while loop in other languages. So this part is the condition that we will really execute the loop. So let us try to play with the program. Oh, I haven't saved it yet. So let me try to save the program first. Okay, now I can run the program. So j would be 0 at the beginning. So when 0 is smaller than 5, I will do the printing here. And then I would increase j by 1 so that j would become 1. And 1 is still smaller than 5, I will print out 1. And I will go to do the looping until I have j equals 5. If j is equal to 5, this condition would fail. That means I'm not able to go to the content of the for loop. It means that I will just stop at j equals 4 here. Okay. And let us see an example of an infinite for loop. The for loop will never end if we have an infinite for loop. We have to really use Ctrl+C to really stop the infinite loop. So let us see an example of the infinite loop. This is an infinite loop. So you see that I have never put something after the for keyword, and you can see that I've also done nothing to really control the index. So let us try to play with the code. So you can see that I will have the printing to come out forever, and I will just need to press Ctrl+C to stop the looping. Okay, when I have really interrupted the program execution, the printing action will just stop. Okay, so that is the meaning of an infinite for loop. And we can also use the for loop together with the range keyword. The range keyword can be used to loop over array, slice, string, map, or channel. And the index and values can be returned by the range keyword. Index and value here would refer to the index of the array element and the corresponding value of the array element given a certain index. Okay, so let us see how we can iterate over a slice. Suppose I have a certain slice. I have 5 numbers in the slice, and I can use the range keyword to loop over each of the elements one by one. So the index would refer to the index of the slice element. The value would be just corresponding to the element given the index. Okay, so I can print them out. So the index is of integer type, so the index can be represented by the D placeholder, and the value is also a certain integer, so I would have D here to represent the integer as well. So let us try to play with the code. Index 0 would have a value of 1, index 1 would have a value of 2, so on and so forth. So I'm able to loop over all the elements one by one by using the range keyword for a slice. Okay, so in Go language, the index would start with 0. So that's why we have 0 at the beginning. Okay, and we can also iterate over a map. So let us try to understand this part of the code first. So now I have a map. I want to map a string to another string. So I have the first string here, followed by the second string here. So I have 3 mappings to do. Okay, and the key would correspond to the first string in my example, and the value would be corresponding to the second string in my example. Okay, so they are all strings, that's why I use the as placeholder. Okay, so let us try to play with the code. Okay, the key is the first string in my example, and the value will be the second string in my example. So the key here will be a string, and the value here would be the second string. Okay, and we can also iterate over a string so that I can pick up the characters in the string one by one. So let us see this example. I have a string here, and then I can pick up the index of the characters in the string, and I can also show the corresponding character by using the range keyword. Okay, so index is of integer type, so I can use the D placeholder, and a character can be represented by the C placeholder. So let us try to play with this part. So index 0 would correspond to the first character, which is H, and the second character will be E. So the second character would have an index of 1, so on and so forth, until we have exhausted all the characters in a given string. Okay, and then we can mention the break keyword. The break keyword is something like this. We can leave the current loop and do the rest of the code by using the break keyword. So let us try to understand this example. Here I have a nested for loop. So if j equals 3, I will break. The breaking here means that I will try to leave the for loop, which is the inner one here. So when I use the break keyword, I'm going to quit the nearest for loop. Okay, the nearest for loop means that it is nearest to the break keyword. Okay, so let us see what will happen with the code when I run the program. I would start with 0 and j would also start with 0. So I can do the printing 0, 0, and then j will be looped to 1, and then I will print out 0 and 1 for I and j respectively, and then the third line will be 0 for I and j for 2 because j will be incremented by 1, okay. But when I find that j is equal to 3, I will break the nearest for loop. That means I'm not able to do the printing, okay. It means that I will go to the outer for loop immediately, and I will try to loop over the I again, okay. The I will be 1 here, and j will just start with 0, okay, because I have to enter the inner for loop again after the breaking, okay. So you will see that I have only 9 lines to print out, okay. The first 3 corresponds to I equals 0. The next 3 lines would correspond to I equals 1. And the final 3 lines would correspond to I equals 2, okay. So the breaking here means that I want to leave the closest or nearest for loop and do the rest of the program. We can also use an infinite loop plus the break keyword to represent the do-while loop in other languages. So in some languages, we have the do-while loop, which means that we really execute the loop for at least once. If we want to do the looping for the second time, we have to check the condition to see whether we can really do the second loop. So let us try to understand the following example. Here I have k equals 1, and then I have an infinite loop because I don't include anything after the for keyword, and I want to print out k, and k will be multiplied by 2, and if k is larger than or equal to 20, I will just break the for loop. It means that when k is 20 or more, I will just quit, and I will not be able to do the printing any longer. So that is called the do-while loop in other languages. It means that I will have to print out k for at least once. And then after the printing, I multiplied k by 2, and then I have to check whether I need to do the second loop again. So let us play with the program. Now you'll see 1 will be printed out, and after the printing, k will become 1 times 2, which is 2. 2 isn't larger than or equal to 20. I will just do the looping for the second time to print out 2. And then I will just continue to multiply k by 2 and do the checking again. So when k becomes 16, after the multiplication by 2, it will become 32. And 32 will be larger than or equal to 20. And in this situation, I will break the for loop. It means that I will no longer go back to the for loop to print out 32. That's why the printing will end at 16 only, okay? The next keyword to discuss is the use of continue. We can skip the current iteration and continue with the next iteration when we use the continue keyword. So let us see an example to discuss the use of the continue keyword. So here I have a for loop to increment I for a number of times from 0 to 9 because I cannot be equal to 10. When I is equal to 5, I will just quit the current loop and I will do the rest of the looping. So you can see that I'm able to print out 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, but not 5. And after that, I will go back to the for loop to print out 6 and so on. So let us see the result of this program. Yes, you can see that number 5 is skipped because of the continue keyword. When I is 5, I will go back to the for loop to go to another iteration, which is 6. So I will start with 6 after I have used the continue keyword, okay? The next for loop to discuss is the nested for loops. So a for loop can include another for loop. So we can see an example here. So you see inside the for loop, I have another for loop. So you can see that the first for loop would have I as the index, and for the second for loop, I will have j as the looping index. So I'm able to print out both I and j by doing the nested for loop. When I is equal to 0, I will just loop over j. So it means that I fix I and then I loop over j. And after finishing all the printing of the j variable in the inner for loop, I will increment I, and I will just have another looping for the inner for loop. So let us see the result. Okay, you can see that I will start with I equals 0, and I will go to the inner for loop to loop over all the possible values of j. So you will see 0, 0, 0, 1, and 0, 2. So after finishing all the j's in the inner for loop, I will go to I equals 1, and then I will just enter the inner for loop to print out all the j's again. So 1, 0, 1, 1, and 1, 2. After that, all the j's are printed out, and then I will go to the next index for the outer for loop, and then I will go to the inner for loop again to print out all the possible values of j. So that's why I will have 2, 0, 2, 1, and 2, 2. So this video has discussed a lot of things about for loop. We know how to make a for loop by including the initialization, condition to do the looping, and the update part of the looping. And we also know how to do the conditional for loop, which is actually similar to the while loop in other languages. We know how to do an infinite for loop. We know how to iterate over a slice, a map, a string, by using the range keyword. And we also know the use of break and continue keyword. Finally, we know how to do the nested for loop. This is the end of the video. If you have any questions about my video, please leave your questions on the comment section below the video. If you like this video, please give me a like and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.